All right. Good afternoon, or good evening, everybody. Thank you for watching, or thank you for tuning in to the um, Georgia Prison Watch podcast and live Facebook show tonight. We have a very, very important topic that we need to share tonight. Joining me is my co-host, Susan Sparks Burns, who is the founder of They Have No Voice. She's here with us every week, dropping her knowledge and her expertise on us. Susan, are you with me?
I am.
How are you today or
I
tonight?
I am good. And I'm fired up. So let's talk about it.
Well, I mean, there's a lot to talk about. Over the last 24 hours, we've had the unfortunate news on the death at Telfair State Prison in regards to the hot cage death. I guess that's what I'll call it. Um, and so we started thinking, and we figured that we wanted to go ahead and talk about these cages and things of that nature. So, Susan, you want to start us off with anything, or let me do this first. Let me do this first before we get into the meat of the topic tonight. If you will, please share this live. Please share this live. Want to pull up something real quick. One of our goals are with this is getting more people involved and getting people talking about these very important issues that we bring to you every week and pretty much every day. There's something always going on within the Georgia Department of Corrections, and we wanted to get more people involved and get more people talking and get more people looking at this stuff and listening to this stuff. And you know the shares are a big factor in us accomplishing, trying to get more people involved and accomplish what we're trying to what we're trying to put out there. So I looked at this earlier, and me and Susan just looked at it as well. If you look on your screens earlier, this was a post that we shared earlier, and it had 82 impressions, but it only had 23 shares. And we got to get those numbers up. We don't ask for donations, we don't ask for anything around here, but we only thing we ask is that you share these topics, and share all this stuff to your Facebook profile. If you're on YouTube watching, share it on YouTube, copy the link, post it back on social media, on Facebook. And if you're watching on Twitter, retweet us, because these are very important topics and issues. We got people dying right now because of the negligence of the Georgia Department of Corrections in cages where the temperature is over 100 degrees, and we got people that's dying, and this is not the first time. So we're going to get into this, but Susan, I'll let you comment on this if there's anything you want to say before we get going.
Um, I am in full agreement with Brian. This is something that's important. At least we believe it's important. And from your um, comments to us, we think you believe it's important too. This is a great platform to reach out to others, but it works through sharing. So please, please share this podcast. Even if you're a few minutes into it, share it. But we'll remind you again during the podcast. But we want you to share. We need you to share. And there's 47,000 people behind the walls in Georgia that need you to share. So please do that. Um, and as Brian said, what has happened this week is an absolute tragedy. It did not have to happen. And we had a warning on Monday. We had a warning. All of us knew last weekend that it was going to be the hottest week of the year. We've had heat indexes around the state of Georgia in the range of 110 degrees. And heat index doesn't give you what it's like in the sun. Add 15. Call it 125 in the sun. So Monday, one of our members was so upset. She didn't find out till late that her son and several other men had been in the cages or the kennels at Phillips State Prison, and they were there somewhere between 9 and 12 hours. It was blistering hot, and and that's what they got was blistered. They were sunburned, and it's a miracle that they were not sick with heat stroke, heat exhaustion, sun poisoning, all of those things. Those those are all that I just mentioned, things that require medical care. And sunburn is not a joke. It can lead to second and third degree burns. So we knew that on by Tuesday morning that had happened Monday. Just no excuse. And then here we are again, but this time tonight on Friday, we are talking about a man who died. He died in the cage at Telfair. Brian?
No, and it's just, I guess I want to start on, why do we continue to be here? This is not the first incident of someone dying in the cage. This is not the first incident of what you're talking about when it comes to Phillips State Prison earlier this week. I mean, I always say it. This is not a one-off. This is taking place, every single day at these facilities. I mean, and as you said, we're looking at temperatures of 95 degrees plus the heat index or the humidity or whatever the case may be. And then we get, looking instead of, it's it's 95 degrees, but it feels like 105 degrees, and then you still have these, I don't even know what to call them. I don't know if I ought to call them ignorant or dumb or whatever. I'm trying to be nice, but you have these people at these facilities who still believe that it's okay to put people in these cages. These cages, you have no access to water, you have no access to ice, you have no access whatsoever to a bathroom or a restroom or anything like that.
No.
So you're left in these cages, and in this in Mr. Ramirez case, Mr. Ramirez had went in that cage at 10 a.m. Okay, he went in that cage at 10 a.m. They found him unresponsive in that cell at 3 p.m. So you do the math. They found him in the cage unresponsive at 3 p.m. yesterday. And when I spoke with the family and a couple other people that that may know, um, you know, the family told me that his body actually got there at the ER. His body temperature was 107 degrees. 107. So, like I said, I don't know who decided that this is okay, and we're going to get into, what they actually use these cages for in just a second, because they've also started where they're using these cages for punishment. They're putting these people in these cages for 6, 7, 8, 9 hours in a day for punishment, and then they let them out of the cages and send them back to their dorm after they have set in these cages and roasted for half of the day.
Brian, if
You
I'm
know,
not mistaken, if they've been in there till, say, if they've been in the cage till 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, haven't they missed chow at least twice?
I can't answer that. I don't know. I would imagine so,
I mean,
unless
they're not getting fed in the cage.
no, unless you have someone that will come around and bring you, your food. But, I highly doubt it. But, just think about the unsanitary part about it. I mean, you have to urinate in these cages. You got to hold it, and then you just got to go ahead and urinate or whatever you got to do, because there's no getting out. And this man yesterday, he was in this cage from, like I said, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. and nobody ever came around and checked on him. So they're not, if they're not checking on him, they don't have the staff, they don't have the officers, they don't have anybody that's going to be coming around and checking on somebody. But yet they're going to continue to put them in these cages for hours, up to 12 hours at a time, in scorching hot heat.
Folks, this has got to stop. It's got to stop. Please, if you or your loved one has been put in a kennel outside one of these cages, or even in a cage inside, and then been denied water, food, or restroom facilities, then please let us know. Please let us know, because we'll want to get in touch with you.
Yes, and we'll go ahead and just put it out there now. And I spoke with Susan about this before we came on the air tonight. We actually are going to be very, very soon, I believe, and if Susan blesses it, we're going to do it. But very, very soon, we have legal counsel on board, and we are going to seek legal action against the Georgia Department of Corrections for this inhumane treatment. And these cages are going to stop. We can't promise you that it's going to stop, but we're going to seek legal action very, very soon about that. And Susan, you can be a witness to this. That what I'm saying is 100% true.
He is not kidding, folks. We are fed up. I told him before we came on air, I've been fighting this particular fight for over 3 years. And the first death that we know of, the first death was May 4th of 2020. That man's name was James Mitchell, and he died on a beautiful, sunny, warm day. It only got to 80 degrees, and he died. He was at Rutledge, put in the cage at 7 in the morning, 7:30, I believe. And they came to get him at 6:30 p.m. So how I came to know about James Mitchell, if y'all will recall, this was when COVID was going on. And at Rutledge, they had emptied two dorms and moved those men, mainly older guys actually, to sleep on the floor in the gym. So the gym, they could actually see. So they're on the floor. They're in the gym all day long. They're good guys. They're not leaving anything. And they could look out onto the cages. And one of the men who was in the gym took James Mitchell water a couple of times during the day. Well, he didn't have any business out there, but he was out, no one was watching, shall we say. But James Mitchell died. No one from GDC came out there for 12 hours, other than they did bring another man out that afternoon, and we approached the other man within a couple of weeks of this, and asked him would he talk with us about it, and he declined. And I don't blame him. I mean, I might not make that decision, but I'm not in prison, so
right. So
just terrible.
And we're getting on this, and we're gonna share something, and we're gonna share a video in just a second. But they are also have started also using the JPay kiosk cages in these holes in these segregation buildings. They've started where they're using these particular cages to house people in these, so it, if you can't put them in the, if you can't put them outside in the cages, then they're using these cages. And the video that you're about to see is complete evidence. And I want you to pay a very good attention to the video that we're about to play, because no one's seen this video, but it's very important that you watch this video and that you see what they're doing. And this guy right here was left in this particular cage for almost 24 hours. But I mean, I want you to see it for yourself, because, and you can get an understanding of what we're talking about. Now, as I said, this is 24 hours he was left in this cage. Now, I don't care if it was inside or outside. It's still inhumane to leave a person in a cage for over almost 24 hours with no restroom, with, no water, nothing to drink whatsoever, but his personal property. So I'm going to play this, and then we're going to come back and we're going to read a statement from an idiot who decided that he wanted to leave a comment today because he works for the GDC. And we're going to let you know what the GDC uses these cages for. But let's watch this video, and then we'll come back and we'll discuss this statement by this staff person.
Been in here for damn near 24 hours. 24 hours having to piss in a bottle.
Susan?
I think the last couple of frames there says it all. 24 hours. And what he's not saying, you can't lie down and you can't sit comfortably. You're leaning against chain link fence. As one thing to lean against the fence when you're a kid, but where your choice is.
I want to play it again just so people can get an idea.
It.
Yeah, people. So.
Been in here for damn near 24 hours. 24 hours having to piss in a bottle.
He doesn't have his feet propped up, his knees bent, and his feet propped up because it's comfortable. He can't stretch his legs out.
So, and then we make, I'll let you read this, Susan. We let this Lionel Harris, he tells us what the GDC, he works for the GDC. He's
nice.
He's a officer, because I went to his page earlier, and he had all of the nice pictures of uniforms and the badges and all this stuff. So, Susan, if you want to start with this, we'll go over, what he says these cages are used for.
These are recreational pens. Inmates are placed in them to get sun and to recreate. Some of them are so brutal to each other, and recreational activity is a state mandated policy. This is how they're kept safe while recreating. These pens are not used for any disciplinary sanctions. Oh, please. That's all they're used for.
And we should, he shouldn't be an officer. They ought to move him to the public relations side of the Georgia Department of Corrections. He'd be great at it with his foolishness and lies. So, let's just talk about it, because, for the you people that do not know, these cages are 100% used for disciplinary action, These cages 100% are used for things that they're not supposed to be used for. I mean, do we need to play the video again? I mean, that's clear proof that this guy was put in the cage for 24 hours. Well, close to 24 hours. And was having to urinate in a freaking chemical bottle. So, don't tell me, and with this foolishness that these cages are used for recreational purposes, when you have people being put in these cages and dying, when you got people being put in these cages for 24 hours without a restroom, without any water, without anything. Don't tell me they're used for recreational purposes, because it's nonsense.
It's insulting. Look, they don't take the time, whether or not they have enough staff. They don't take the time to even do DRs anymore. Hardly ever hear about DRs. They don't even have time, but this is what they do instead.
Yes.
It's punishment.
Yeah. And I've heard, recently, someone may look at the warden wrong, and the warden sends them to the cage for 6-7 hours, and then once the warden says release them, they bring them out of the cage and send them back to the dorm. So these cages are 100% being used for punishment, and it's complete torture. You put them outside in scorching heat during the day, 100 degrees outside, but then you have clowns like this to come on here and wants us to believe, even though we see the pictures, we see the people, we hear about the people that's dying in the cages, we hear all of this stuff, but then you got clowns like this guy that comes on here and wants us to believe, oh, they're being used for recreational purposes.
Like I said, it's insulting. I'm trying to think, who wants to go outside in this heat? Nobody. Now, in fact, it's not always hot here. Some people have said that people have been put in the cages overnight, that they may have been used for other things such as fighting, but whatever else is what has happened, one thing for sure, James Mitchell died after 12 hours in the hot sun in 2020, and here we are 3 years and 3 months later, talking about another man who has died. There's on Tuesday, I think it was a Wednesday morning, I sent an email to our commissioner, and he responded, basically, thanks for bringing that. In fact, he said, thanks for bringing this to my attention.
Well, right. One of the most condescending statements that you can make.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, but that's what he said. And literally 24 hours later, a man is dead. I don't know how you show less compassion, less caring for people. And people are dying, and they're not simply dying by suicide and homicide and medical neglect that they call natural causes. They're dying from being punished in ways that are absolute torture.
Yeah. No, I agree. And, it's like I have the comment that I have up now from Gail. It's absolutely criminal. What person in their right mind that knows it's hot outside, that knows that some of these counties have been under emergency, heat warnings, what human being would even offer someone to go outside in this scorching heat? Let's just give them the benefit of the doubt, and they offer for for people to go outside in this heat. Why would you offer someone, knowing how hot it is, knowing that you're not going to be back to check on them for hours? Why? Who does that? Who offers someone that?
When I was a child and my mother would make us go outside and look and play in this, I would cry. And if I was really being put out, she would say, "Oh, well, you can go read." Heck yeah! But if I were being made as a 70-year-old adult to go out there, my death warrant would be signed. These people are
Yeah,
not being screened for any sort of medical issues. They're not being screened for whatever types of medication they might take that make them hypersensitive to the heat. Some of the mental health meds do it. Some of the blood pressure medications do it. I'm no nurse, but I've got uh, plenty of meds in my medicine cabinet. Um, this note comment from Sally on the screen right now.
is
Absolutely.
100% spot on.
Yes. But
Yes.
this is the culture of the entire agency. There are 10,000 people working there, and there's 47,000 in their care. These people are these the inmates. These are human beings who have no choice of where they get put, what time they get up, what time they go to bed, any of that. All choice is taken away. I mean, as people are prone to tell us, well, it's prison. Yeah, but it's not a death sentence.
Right. No, and that's what it's turned into. It's turned into a death trap. It's a 100% death trap. And Bobby, was it Bobby Joe Ingram said, she asked us, why has the news not picked up on this? And I'm going to say a couple things. I'm going to answer to this. Actually, yesterday, I think it was yesterday, me and Susan actually did a sit down interview for I guess, a news story that's going to be airing um, in the next few weeks about these conditions that's going on. So people are some of the news organizations are starting to pick this stuff up, and to their defense as well. And we heard this yesterday, and Susan can verify it as well. We heard it yesterday. These news organizations have just the hardest time as we do trying to get any type of comment from the GDC, trying to get any type of explanation whatsoever from the Department of Corrections. So they're left with their hands in the air. If they don't talk to them and give them their side of the story, they're just reporting on a one-sided story. So but it's been told to us, and it was told to us yesterday, that they have a hard time getting any type of explanation on what we see in these videos from the GDC. Susan?
The GDC shut down essentially, not entirely, but in effect, their press releases on inmate deaths in May of 2020. At that time, they had, I believe, around a dozen deaths from COVID, and it got shut off. So we get very little information out of Department of Corrections. When you've got an agency that is caring for people, doesn't this merit some comment from Georgia Department of Corrections? Yet again, there's been a death where someone's been placed out in full sun for hours and died.
Well, no. I mean, they put they're constantly issuing their press releases with the contraband that they're finding.
Oh
I
yeah.
think I think that tells us where their priorities are.
Yeah, I believe TAC was at GDCP this week and at Central this week. So that's it, boys. You know, get get those knives, get those cell phones, get some tobacco. And actually, one of my friends whose father is in prison here in Georgia, he doesn't have any teeth. He's an elderly man. He doesn't have any teeth. And they when they were inspected, they took away his straw that he uses to drink his apple juice. So that's the kind of priority we've got. You couldn't get any pettier than taking away a straw from an 85-year-old man with no teeth. But
Yeah.
you've got people dying. Are we missing the boat entirely?
Yeah. And and it's just that they don't care. Um, they just don't care. And unfortunately, this is what we're faced with because they don't care. But I'm telling you, we're going to make them care about these kennels and whatever you call them, the kennels or the cages or whatever. I mean, how do you, I'm dumbfounded, Susan, that how do you, and it goes back to leadership of these facilities as well, because as a warden, the person that's in charge of the operations of these facilities, how do you not know when a temperature is going to be too hot for humans to be outside in extreme heat? How do you allow these for this to happen? And it's negligence. It's negligence on the part of the warden. Somebody said it in the chat earlier. You start from the top. This is a leadership thing. It starts from the top. These people, you know, are these people are they're the top of the totem pole, right? And it always says the buck stops here. Um, the buck stops here, and these wardens have got to start being held accountable for the negligence that they're doing. I mean, you got people like Jacob Beasley, and I'm going to talk about Jacob Beasley incompetent self every single chance that I get because he's completely incompetent. But you had him that was freaking. They had no water 3 weeks ago at Smith State Prison for 12 hours,
He had
and then
taken, as uh, warden, he had taken water and soft drinks off the commissary as punishment.
right.
Then they have no water thanks to the town of Glenville, but it doesn't matter. There's 1,500 people there that didn't have anything to drink, any way to wash, couldn't flush the toilet, on and on and on.
Yeah. So, like I said, it starts at the top with these wardens. And when you have incompetent wardens and when you have them people that just don't care about human life, I mean, you can't convince me now. I mean, I know staff and wardens, they listen to this and they watch this. And, I watched the chat when I seen, some of them that's listed in the directory pops in. So I see them and I know that they watch this, and I know that they listen to it. We've heard stories of, people saying that, heard them watching it or heard them or saw them scrolling, looking at something. So, we know that they watch. We know that they listen, but the comment on the screen again by Chastity is completely spot on. A well-ran prison starts with a good warden. And you just don't have that at these places. They don't care. I'm convinced that they don't care. Nobody can tell me anything else that they care and that they don't go there just for a paycheck. I mean, it's evident at this point because you're putting people in cages when it's 110 heat index outside. You're putting them in cages for 12 and 13 hours, and the
And turning
wardens
your
are
back on them.
yeah, and the wardens are responsible for this because they walk around. Some of them send people to the cages, and they know that the heat index, what the heat index is for today, and yet they still send them to these cages. They still continue to do all of this foolishness that we see on a daily basis and hear about on a daily basis. And then at the end of the day, you have somebody dead in the cage. And what happens to them? They get promoted. They get promoted to regional director or promoted from a deputy warden to a warden. This is the type of foolishness that's happening. And unfortunately, Susan, you got people that's dying behind it.
It's the absolute truth. I got involved with corrections advocacy because my son went to prison. My son's been out 6 years and is doing great. I've stayed involved, and this is why. In the beginning, my son was at a facility that has a terrific warden, and it was run by the book. And they didn't have they didn't have much violence at all, nor did they have suicides or homicides. I I kept hearing all these mothers around me saying all these things that were going on. I stayed involved because it couldn't be. I couldn't make myself believe that human beings were being treated like this. And it finally occurred to me that there are many people who were, of course, they're good people in the GDC, but there are many people who, this hurts me to even say it, don't consider that inmates are human beings, that their lives are worthwhile, and that they're worthy of our care.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and it was something that sparked me yesterday, Susan, when she asked the question as we were closing, what is your main concern when it deals with the GDC? And I said it. I hated to say it, and it broke my heart to say it. But my comment or my response to her was that these family members may not ever see their loved ones again when they go into the Georgia Department of Corrections. I mean, it's that bad, and it's not an exaggeration. And I hate to say it, and I feel real bad saying it, but I mean, it's the truth. You got people that's going into these facilities on probation violations for, 12, 13 months, and they're not making it out.
No.
It's truth. I mean, it might be harsh to some, and it may be not the right thing to actually say. But I mean, that's the reality of it right now. People are going into these places, and they're leaving out in body bags with zero amount of time, or they're going into these facilities with 2 years and catching life sentences.
Yeah.
And that's the stern reality of it. Go ahead.
I hate it that we're talking about another death, but in particular one that absolutely was preventable. And people in the comments tonight have asked, why didn't we notify the press? I sent emails about this very thing this morning to 80 people in the press. No one has called me or contacted me. 80 people.
Yeah. It's unfortunate, and until people start to realize that these are human beings, and that they're due the exact same care. You said something yesterday, is that these people did not receive a death sentence; they were sentenced, and should some of them be in prison? Probably so. But at the end of the day, the judge did not give them a death sentence, because if anybody's with a death sentence at Smith State Prison or Telfair State Prison, then they got some problems. They're housed wrong. But the judge didn't sentence them to death.
No.
And every day we're seeing people die when it's preventable. It's preventable, and it just seems that the top of the leadership in the Georgia Department of Corrections is completely blind or deaf to what's going on. And they're too busy trying to save an image. That they're missing the major stuff that's going on. And I got news for them. Their image has been tarnished. Their image was tarnished 5 or 6 years ago. When they started this foolishness on the tier program with just the lack of all of that stuff that they were doing, that they were sued by the Southern Center for Human Rights and, made to stop, or they're still doing it, but they're still doing the same stuff that they were just sued up for 2 or 3 years for and lost. So they're trying to, paint this image that, they run these secure facilities and they run these, safe facilities, and, don't believe your lying eyes with the videos and the pictures that you're seeing. I don't know, Susan. Go ahead.
I was just looking back at the letters I've written over the years and the emails, and I don't know why an old retired woman is having to bang this particular gong, but I'm here for the fight just because of this. This is wrong. It's just wrong. And there has to be some culpability here. And there have to be consequences of it. It's ironic that we're talking about consequences of actions to people whose loved ones are in prison, or even to prisoners themselves. Consequences for your actions. Juan Carlos Ramirez didn't do anything to deserve to die yesterday. That's
No.
what he got.
No. And
I don't care what he did.
No. It's, as I said, he didn't receive a death sentence. He was not sentenced to death. And yet, because of negligence and just complete wrongdoing on the part of the Georgia Department of Corrections, his family now is planning a funeral at their expense. And what do you think they're going to do? They're not going to call and offer condolences, and they're going to deny to the end. It wasn't our fault. This is just it's a pattern of abuse of power. That's exactly what it is. It's a 100% pattern of abuse of power by these places. Never take accountability for anything. But they'll make a post 100% real quick if they find some contraband outside of a facility. But this is what you're dealing with, Susan. And I just thought about this. They never, or they have not in 2 or 3 years now, put out a press release and offered condolences to anybody that dies in their care.
No.
I mean, this is the type of people that you're dealing with. It goes back to Ronald Phillips. Just a few weeks ago, his mother was called hours later. They decided that they wanted to have a retirement party for someone. I think that's what it was, a retirement party. A retirement party for someone. It was her
promotion. They were celebrating.
Well, a promotion for someone. And you had a dead body in the hole at Hancock State Prison who had been killed. But they wanted to continue their celebration for someone that was getting a promotion, that they didn't even have any courtesy, any respect whatsoever to call a mother and tell them that their son had been killed in the hole, and it was because of their doing. So when you come to this courtesy, you come to this, respect, and you come to morals, they don't have any. And like I said, I'm nobody can tell me any different at this point.
no. You
No
know,
one can tell me different.
there was a death at Phillips State Prison back in, it was in the summer, I believe, of last year. Fabian McBride, his mother was FaceTiming people that he was in prison with, and she said, my son's there. They said, no ma'am, no ma'am, your son has died. This is other inmates telling this boy's mother. I don't mean boy badly, I mean he was 19, 21, maybe 19. He was a young man, but she, I believe she lived in Augusta, and got in her car and started driving to the prison. And finally, now it's a long haul between Grovetown and Buford. She got a call on 285, uh, you know, to tell her that her son was dead. He was dead before she ever left home.
Yeah,
And
this was the lady. This was the lady that she had been calling the facility for hours, and
yes,
she actually called the facility, and the lady that answers the phone, and I know it was a lady because she said it was a lady, but she said the lady that answered the phone put her on hold and came back and said, "Ma'am, your son is fine. He's in the dorm." The lady lied to her.
yes, he was dead. And and we're going to do another podcast in the next few days, hopefully, with some mothers who have had these calls. And I promise you, none of them are saying the nicest person called me. The they don't even say necessarily that the warden called them. In the case of Roland Phillips' mother, the deputy coroner called her at 9:30 that night. That's not how it's supposed to be. And I don't think, as citizens of Georgia and and stakeholders in the Georgia Department of Corrections, that we're not asking too much to ask for a little bit of compassion from the people that are caring for our loved ones. Oh, did I say caring for? That, well, you know what I meant.
Yeah. So as we start to close this out, um, as I said, this has become a routine occurrence now. They don't learn from any mistakes that they make. They don't acknowledge any of the mistakes that they make, um, and it's leading to more and more preventable deaths. We thought we knew what happened when COVID hit, uh, and they made like they was doing all this stuff, and they weren't doing anything, uh, and they had a a number of probably preventable deaths, but this is what you get, and it's becoming a everyday occurrence with these people. But they continue to be promoted. They continue to be to get that slap on the back that I guess that's what they want at the end of the day. Um, but it's just this is the kind of stuff that's just completely heartbreaking. And it's unfortunate that we're having to come here on a Friday night and tell you guys about it. The number that's scrolling at the bottom of your screen, I employ everyone to call that number. I employ everybody to text that number, and let them know that we're seeing all of the stuff that they're doing that's inhumane, all of the stuff that they're doing that's 100% completely illegal, and they're continuing to do it, and we're not going to stand by and let another death happen in a cage with scorching heat. And as I said earlier, and we alluded to it earlier, we will be seeking legal action very, very soon. We have an attorney that's on board, and we're going to be letting people know shortly on what we're going to do. The notice of intent to sue will be going out, and we're not going to let this happen. We're not going to sit by and watch another person die in a cage that had been there for 9 and 10 hours, had not been checked, had not received any water, not received any ice, not even let out to go to the bathroom. And we're not going to sit back and let another death happen. So, we'll put our money where our mouth is on that one, because it's coming, and we're going to work on it. And, we're going to make sure that not another death will happen this way if we can prevent it. Susan, you got anything you want to add?
It's my understanding, and of course, I haven't seen this myself, but it's my understanding that these outdoor kennels have a sign on them regarding the temperature. If it's less than some temperature, don't do it. And if it's greater than some temperature, don't put live people in the cage. And I know from my work experience, you don't end up making a sign and putting it at 35 prisons unless something already happened. Something has happened before James Mitchell, or those signs wouldn't be there. But regardless, anyone would know it's too hot to have to sit in that sun. It's just too hot if you actually want them to live. And there is the problem. Do they actually want them to live?
Yeah.
That takes some effort. No, we won't go to the cage today. We'll come back and do that on a cooler day. It's got to be something. It is the culture of the Georgia Department of Corrections. The wardens, people are right that are making comments on this. The wardens do have the ability, they have the authority to say, we are not ever going to use those again. They could chain them, they could weld them shut. They could truly prevent it. And a warden who's running a prison has got 300 employees and he's got 1,500 people there. You don't think he's got the authority to make those cages inaccessible? Of course he does. Or she. It just takes a little bit of common sense and a heart.
Well, that's preaching to the choir when it comes to common sense and heart.
I really don't know what else to say about this, except it's going on wherever your loved one is. We have pictures, not much like that video that Brian showed earlier, of the indoor cages being used cruelly and inhumanely. Oh, that's the language from the Eighth Amendment. Yeah, cruel and unusual punishment is exactly what CRIP is about. And there has to be some responsibility here. And Brad and I can't make that happen other than by doing what we're doing. And here again, we're going to ask you to share, share, share. Your friends and neighbors, for the most part, don't know what goes on behind the walls of Georgia prisons. They wouldn't believe it. I was told when I would tell people years ago about what I'd heard, no, no. Well, yeah. It's everything that we've talked about here tonight, and in fact, there are worse things. Well, not for Mr. Ramirez's family, but this is prison in Georgia can be a death sentence, and that should never happen, not for anybody.
Yeah. All right, Susan, I appreciate you coming on tonight. As Susan said, please share this on whatever platform you're looking at, watching it on. It'll be available in a couple of days on our podcast platform, and I'll share that as well. Um, as I said, if you know someone that's been held in one of these cages, where it's inside or outside, please reach out to us. You can message us on Facebook. You can also email us any information that you have, pictures, video. We need it all. We have to. I don't want to keep beating this, but somebody's going to have to step in and make them stop using these cages.
Surely this is something all of us can get behind.
Yes.
This has to
Yes.
stop. This
You know,
this has to be the last one.
so if you have any information, if you were held in one of these cages, and you have information, you have proof that you were held in one of these cages, please reach out to us. In the meantime, as I said earlier, the number that's scrolling at the bottom of your screen, write that number down, and call that number, send messages to that number, and let them know that this has to stop. I've been hearing information as we close out. I've been hearing information that people has been calling him, and stuff has probably somewhat been getting done. So let's continue to call, voice our concerns on all of the issues, not just the cage issue, but the whatever issue that's going out there that you think that's going on that you think is important. The cages, the ice, the air conditioner, whatever you think that the issue may be, that's important to you. Uh, Let them know. They're public servants and they need to know. But as Susan said, we cannot do this unless we have a whole team behind us, that's going to that's going to get out here and roll up their sleeves and do the things that needs to be done to bring some change to these places. And if we're doing stuff, we're doing stuff, and we need everybody behind us that's going to do stuff. That's why we ask you to like. That's why we ask you to share. That's why we ask you to call. That's why we ask you to email. That's why we ask you to text. It's not hard. And so we ask you, as humbly as we can, to get behind us, and let's make this the last death in one of these cages. Let's make it the last one. Susan, I'll let you close us out.
No matter what you hear or read, that these are recreational, that they are there to recreate, not a word, by the way, and that people ask to go out there. No, they don't. They don't. Not if they are have the information that it could be the day you die today. Do you want to go out there? Yeah, I'll take that one. No, this can't go on. We've got within us, with this power, this platform, the opportunity to change something that's important. We can stop people from dying.
Yeah,
We can't do it alone, but we can do it together.
absolutely right. So everybody, thank you for tuning in with us tonight. Everybody have a fantastic weekend. As I said, if you need to contact us, you can reach out to our Human and Civil Rights Facebook page. Send us a message. If you're in They Have No Voice, you know how to get in contact with Susan. But if you need anything, please let us know. Have any information, please let us know. And we will look forward to everybody joining us on the next podcast. We thank everybody for tuning in with us tonight, and have a great weekend.
Thanks, everybody.